Hey guys, zZzTILT here. In this video I'm gonna review some hands I got from a couple of people. The lowest ones are from the 15s and the highest from the 60s if I remember correctly. So let's start. 9 for suited, raise it up, flop 2 pair, standard c-bet, also like the sizing here. The turn we should make a value bet of about 90 to 100. Hero checks. On the turn you should really value bet as there are still a lot of worse hands which can call you. Of course the flush hitting isn't the greatest thing for you, but also not the worst. Like there's a decent amount of low X, some 9X definitely in this range which can call again, and a lot of 10X. Like I expect him to float any Broadway really on such a board. Especially the lower limits like Jack 10, Queen 10, King 10, King Queen can have like a flush draw now as well. So I think his calling range will be pretty wide here. So we will have to value bet. If he gets raised then, it really depends on his sizing. Like if he's a bit more passive and he's min raising us, I think we're safe to fold. Like 10-9 hits, Ace 10, probably he's 3-bet shoving, but still. And of course the flush. But if he's check shoving, I would definitely call, as people are check shoving here with a 1-card flush draw or a weak pair as well. And on the river, the 8 hits and he leads out for 90. Don't think there's point in raising. We could go for like a min raise fold, which wouldn't be too bad depending on his river aggression. Like people usually call a min raise with any pair here, but the call is definitely the safe play without any reads. Jack 10 suited, we call in the big blind, the top pair, we would check call that flop, don't check raise here, you would just follow this air. We'll also the flush draw now, so hero decides to lead 60 here. I usually prefer like 3/4 pot in the spot, so 60 into 80 or 90 into 120, because usually when people check behind, when they have air they're folding anyway, but when they have some 4x or some ace high king high, they usually call 1-bet anyway, unless you bet too big, but 90 usually works pretty well. He calls, and for it's a really good card. Hero decides to check. Again, I think he misses a bit of value here. We can definitely go for like 120, even 140, and expect a lot of ace high and king high calls here. Like a river pairing card is usually pretty good for people to hero call. Of course, you can have the 4, so we can easily bet fold here, but drips is pretty hard to have, and in comparison to the ace X and king X combo, and even some 2X are definitely possible. 9-3, limp pot. Here, readless, I will probably, readless and against a passive opponent, I will probably lead out. Don't think this is gonna get c-bet a ton until, unless he's aggressive. And against an aggressive one, I would just check call. But readless here, or against a passive one, I would lead something like 45 for value. Hero decides to check jam here. I think we're a bit too deep to do that. Like we're just folding out too many worse hands, and against like a better flush draw with probably over cards, not like we're in that great of a shape. So I would suggest just check calling here. Queen 4, flop or mid pair, we check behind. This I would definitely c-bet readless, unless he's crazy check raising, but even then we can just call his check raise, because aggressive people usually don't have the ace very often, so it's like a better queen or nothing, and definitely good to call against this range. So I'll probably just c-bet most of the time, unless you have a read that he's like spazzing out when you check behind, but otherwise he's pretty tight to c-bets. When we check behind, we have to call the turn, and it's only betting 80 on the river. It's actually kind of a close one. Of course we can call, but I would actually suggest a min raise fold here min raise fold, min raise call. That's what I mean with close. Like when we min raise here, like I think min raising is definitely the correct play, or even jamming depending on his tendencies. Like we want to get a bit more value from some two pairs, or in case he flattered ace-x, people usually willing to put in more chips. Question is whether he's calling more than a min raise. Readers, I wouldn't assume that, especially with the flush hitting. So I would min raise here and probably without more reads fold to a shove, because with the flush lying there, I don't expect a lot of other 4x to jam over our min raise. So I think min raise folding here is the best play. Check 6 with a top pair. We face a pretty big donk on a try board. That's usually a decent amount of bluffs, so there's no point in raising. Just call, and we would just call down here. When the 5 hits, we also have a gut shots and only 280 behind it, a $300 pot. So I would just check behind here. Maybe he bluffs on the river, so that's fine. Then he bets 150. Don't think there's a... it's pretty close, but I don't think there's a point in raising this bet. So I think this was well played. Check 10. Decent board to check behind with a gut shot and 2 overcards. It's definitely not the worst to get it in, but it's not like a great situation. Like we're really good. So I prefer check behind here. Unless he's pretty passive, then I would also bet out. Again, the check raise, yeah, like I said, of course we can jam, but it's usually not a great idea unless he's check raising a lot. So readless, I would definitely only call here and see a turn. Queen 4, checks behind. Without reads, I would just bet something like 30 here. With reads, that's a decent checking behind range of hand with 1 overcard and a backdoor flush draw. Now he bets 40 in the turn. We just go ahead and call. With raising, we would get too much fold equity. He bets 80 here, and here decides to jam, which I think is close again. Like the sizing doesn't suggest a very strong range to me. So against a weak player, I would probably raise either min raise or raise something to like 180-ish, because I don't see too many weak hands. Like this jam looks pretty strong, like it's 460 chips, and his range rather looks like a 10 or some kind of a jack. If he's calling a jack, of course jamming here is optimal, but he looks kind of scared. But I was wrong there, he has queen 9, so well played. But yeah, in general, I think it's kind of close and depends on the calling range you give villain here. King 4, we check behind. Not a worst spot to check behind. If you're free that he's passive, definitely gonna see by that for value. When a check hits, we have a pair and open ender, so we should be fine to call. Then the king hits, and I would suggest, yeah, the sizing is perfect, small value bet. You can have enough other 2 pairs, or even like random queen x, which will definitely call a small bet. So well played. Ace 10 against a min dong, don't see any point in raising with ace high and a gut shot, so we call. Turn, I would probably raise small for value. Like I don't expect a very strong range, but there's definitely some gut shots, some queen x, maybe even some weak king x, which call a small turn raise, and some of them dumb hands definitely also call a small river bet. So I like the raise size, that should be fine. Then the 10 hits, let me just go ahead again for small value bet, something like 100 here or 90. 40 I think is a bit too small here.